This is Behind the Curtain. Today we're learning how the Safdie brothers learned to tell true lies, why they had to write 160 versions of their script, and why they have an attraction to wrongness. Enjoy.
Well, ever since I was a kid, I would, you know, tell lies, kind of tell these stories that would go, and I would tell them to the adults, and I would find that the stories wouldn't be plausible if I didn't have the details. So I would just start adding details and adding details and adding details. At one point I was like, well, there's so many details, this must be true. So I feel like that was like an early seed to, you know, something like that, where you have these details that are derived from real life, and you can't control them because they just exist. So if you start taking a real life, you know, detail and nuance of someone's real life persona and surround it with fiction, the alchemy is actually very strong, and I think I think it forces you to start asking yourself questions.
But like the games in the script were not those games. You know, there was a good game, bad game, and a good game. You know, so there were these ideas. It was something. Once we realized, oh, we can use these real games to heighten the ideas of the movie, that was an incredible. Well,
you have a super concept, and then you try to look in real life to where could that fit? Like all of our work, we're using fiction to explore, you know, truth.
The Garnett side of things, from a writing perspective, when I think back on it, I'm like, I can't believe I endured that. You know, the Garnett plays a character in the movie that's central to the plot and to the themes of the film. And, you know, when we originally wrote it, it was Amari Stoudemire. Amari Stoudemire is, you know, amongst basketball fans, almost famously eccentric, and you know, is also, you know, famously a black Jewish person. And the themes of the movie worked really well with this Ethiopian Jewish tribe finding this black opal and it arriving in New York from them. So you know, you could imagine, and also the New York of it all. Like Amari is like this person, this almost like a gem of his own, came to the city and is resurrecting this dead franchise. So you're writing the movie around this person with this, who has unique motivations and concerns. And then along the way, you know, for financial reasons, people are trying to push you. It's like 2015, you're like, let's go for Kobe. Kobe wants to act. Everyone heard Kobe wanted to act. So I take the time to rewrite the whole script with Kobe Bryant, which is difficult because this movie has to center around real games in the way they actually unfolded. And you have to write the persona of the player, and which is tough. So I have to like get into Kobe and what does it mean? Can we find East Coast games that even make sense that he's in New York and would come by a jewelry store? And we ended up centering that version around the 60-point game he did at the Garden. Okay. And that was like, you know, and the gem was kind of a youth elixir, and Howard, you know, is kind of a guy past his prime, so it kind of makes sense there as well. Finally, the agency's like, where is it? He wants it. I was like, dude, it takes me time to rewrite this whole script and come up with a whole new set of themes. And then I was like, give me another couple days. So finally, I'm like about to send it. They're like, oh, we'd actually just heard from Kobe's team. He doesn't want to act. He actually wants to direct. I was like, thanks a lot. Fuck you. I would actually spend a lot of time writing this. Jesus. And then we were like, you know what? Let's not make a period piece. Let's make this contemporary. And we looked at players and we thought who worked with the ideas of the movie, and we landed on Joel Embiid. And Joel was attached for a while, actually. He was attached up until 4 months before production. It was perfect. Everything was kind of syncing up nicely, and the themes of the movie worked really well. You have this gemstone taken from Africa, brought to America, and you have a player, an African player, who can actually see this. We can work with the idea of reclamation. And it worked. And Joel, obviously he was known for his trolling sense of humor. And the movie, we pushed the comedic themes of the movie. Scott Rudin was constantly pushing us to add jokes anyway. So everything was working, and then the schedule pushed into the season. All of a sudden, we don't have a player anymore because we can't shoot with an active player. And then we have to go back to the drawing board and look at recently retired players. And that's when we saw Kevin Garnett's name on that list. And Garnett, as a Knicks fan, instinctively, I hated him. So I was like, no way, Kevin Garnett, I fucking hate him. It was shame on me because I was actually blinded. The sports fan in me was actually prohibiting us the part of my brain that can actually deduce if someone's a good actor or not. Because I hated Kevin Garnett because of his performative self. I hated him because he was a heel in the NBA, and that he actually every night knew how to play to 20,000 people. He saw it as theater almost. All of his Craig Sager interviews those are the things you kind of. So then we took the phone meeting with him, and I was honest. The second I met him, I was like, I hate your guts on the phone, and he loved that. He's like, you're a Knicks fan. Benny's like, how much did tomorrow have time on the clock?
Yeah, it's like,
Tell me.
come on. And he's like, oh,
guys,
that was 9 years ago in a regular season game.
You guys are talking about a game from 2012. It's 2019.
He's like,
2018.
he's like,
but we had to rewrite the whole script just for Kevin, and that became something that acted. I mean, there's over 160 drafts of this script.
Jesus.
Yeah, I mean, over 160.
Well, because every time you cast somebody new, you kind of have to revisit it to kind of give it life again. So.
There's a certain degree of I don't know, bug fuck layering to the work that comes from this sort of thwarting at all times, because you have multiple viewpoints. All three brains are descending on the work, conceptually, right? And inspiration will come, and you'll lay down the purpose of a given scene, right? But again, since we're working on it over so many years, a year later, Josh may come up with another inspired idea that he wants to graft onto that scene. And that inspiration might run counter to the original inspiration that laid the scene out and, that made you devise the scene in the first place. And rather than run away from those contradictions, there's an attraction to wrongness. That's a very loose term. But the idea of wrong, the idea of two things that shouldn't go together. I don't mean wrong in the sense of a character making a wrong choice on a level of text. I'm talking about something wrong, two ideas that either invalidate one another or contradict one another, or maybe run counter to your aesthetic sensibilities, or run counter to your intelligence. And what ends up happening is there's both of us have a kind of a perverse, we get a perverse thrill out of taking the wrong and seeing if we can make it right.
Uncut Gems has a very dense plot. There's a lot happening in it.
Yes.
And to us, we were so afraid of kind of feeling naked and exposed when narrative propulsion or narrative in general exposes itself. We'd feel like, oh my God, this is bad. So the idea would be, because life doesn't unfold that way. All of a sudden you're doing something and things are just happening in a natural way. So that became a big that in a weird way.
There are things that were added to purely narrative scenes to kind of make it not feel like it's just narrative.
Or think about spending a few years on multiple versions of this, multiple drafts on this film, and just deeply, deeply getting yourself on the frequency of making this New York film set in the Diamond District. And then one of us says, oh, I want to open in Ethiopia.
What do you think? Am I crazy?
It seems so out of whack with the frequency that we've been on. Okay, the first instinct, especially, is to say no, 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 but then it's like, oh wait, there's something so wrong about that. Not only are we gonna make it right, we're gonna make sure that we find a way to conceptually massage it into the film.
And the opening
once
credits.
Once you find that conceptual thread, well then we have that idea of Africa, and then, my father has colon issues, I get a colonoscopy, it runs in my family, and then suddenly it's like, oh, I'm at the, I'm getting a colonoscopy for the first time, and I talking to the doctor, and I find out in conversation with him that colon issues are sewn into Jewish DNA, that Jewish genetics, are more inclined to develop colon cancer, than other sort of genetic pools, right? Then it's like, oh, okay, how can I get this? Now suddenly Africa, a colonoscopy, and the Diamond District are all sort of seamlessly sewn together. And now that they're all in the movie, and let's say, hopefully if done correctly, they all flow rather seamlessly, and they're all tied together conceptually in a way that is sort of bulletproof. But if you think about arriving at those ideas separately, and the process that it takes to make them work, if you back up and look at it or even squint at it, they're all wrong. They don't belong together. And there's a great satisfaction in taking the wrong and making it right.
I often learn more through fiction than I do through nonfiction, and you want to kind of, you want the movie to be a keyhole into a world. So if you're stopping and just explaining or describing things at any moment, it's just not how life unfolds.
Yeah, and also I think there's certain things that we know, okay, you may not catch that, but you'll catch enough to be able to move forward. You know, it's more important to get the authentic nature of who these people are, because that will be so much more, I guess, valuable to a viewer through the experience of the film, because you're feeling these people as real people. Well, and if you don't necessarily catch every bit of what's going on, you're still invested in the overall.
Movies are the closest things we have to time travel and to teleportation. And like, that's what you want a movie to do. You want a movie to take you to a place that you've never been before. And I mean, it sounds cheesy, but that's just the reality of it.
Hey, this is Nehemiah Jordan, the creator of Behind the Curtain. There were so many good insights from the Safdie brothers about Uncut Gems that I actually have a second video coming with more information in the next few days. Go ahead and subscribe and check the notification bell so that you can know when it releases. Thanks again for watching, and I will see you soon.